What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods coming at y'all with our Week 4 top 10. And man, we had some huge games this weekend that really shook up my top 10. And for me, I feel like we're starting to get a picture of who are the real contenders and who are the pretenders at the top of college football. And this next week, we have three or four ranked matchups that are going to greatly, and I mean absolutely, shake up the college football playoff race. So I'm excited for that. But guys, if you're new, smash the subscribe button. Also, smash the like button on this video. But let's waste no time getting into this. And let's start at number 10. I have Ohio State at number 10. They stick at number 10 for me last week. A 59-7 win over Akron. And their key loss was to the number 12 at the time, Oregon Ducks, now top three in the country, according to the AP poll. They are the only one-loss team in my top 10, and it is only by a thread, if that. I mean, I almost put Florida and Ole Miss at this number 10 spot, but for me, they'll stick here for now, and they handled their business against Akron this weekend. But it is clear that the Buckeyes have a major defensive identity issue on this team. CJ Stroud was held out this weekend due to some injury concerns. And also, man, the Buckeyes fans have been screaming for a new quarterback for the past 2 weeks. But I think it was clear, if anything, this weekend that McCord and Miller are not going to offer anything above and beyond what Stroud was already bringing to this offense. I mean, for me, Stroud wasn't even really the problem of this Ohio State team. The running back and wide receiving room, absolutely loaded. Trayvion Henderson, huge breakout star. Mayan Williams has been a great running back. To him and Henderson have been going back and forth, both averaging over 7 yards per carry, which is an outrageous mark to this point in the season. Olave and Wilson leading the receiving core. They're just as good as advertised. But the defense is where the problem arises for the Buckeyes. Over 400 yards allowed per game. They rank outside the top 70 in points per game allowed with 23. They failed to consistently stop any offense. Tulsa, Minnesota, Oregon all move the ball at will, especially on the ground, running it right down Ohio State's throat. This defense has too much talent, in my opinion, to be performing at this level. I want to see if this defense could take a few steps forward. All they have to do is be above average to average, and the Buckeyes are going to be an extremely tough team to beat due to their offensive explosiveness. Now, this upcoming week, they travel to SHI Stadium to face Rutgers in a huge Big Ten matchup. This Rutgers team gave now top 15 Michigan a run for their money last weekend. So the Buckeyes are still going to have to come in laser focused and handle their business next Saturday afternoon. But for right now, I'm going to keep them at 10 because for me, I still feel like that Florida and Ole Miss, those Florida and Ole Miss teams still have a little bit to prove. I still believe Ohio State can turn it around and win the Big Ten, but we'll have to wait and see. But at number 9, we have a new team entering the rankings, and that is Notre Dame. They were not ranked in my top 10 last week. This week, they had a 41-13 win over number 18 Wisconsin, which is really their key win of the season. And they made a huge statement in Chicago this weekend. And say what you want. I said it on our instant reaction show yesterday. Say what you want about the Fighting Irish. They find ways to win games. It isn't pretty. It isn't perfect. But what they do is come in and week out and find a way to get the W on the record. That's all that matters. They said we don't care about anything else as long as there's a W in that column. That's all that matters at the end of the game. And Brian Kelly has shown that week in and week out. Now, the defense that has carried this team at times, especially with opportunistic turnovers. You look at Florida State. You look at this weekend where 2 late interception returns for touchdowns really allowed them to blow the Badgers out. Now, Kyle Hamilton is an absolute star for the secondary, but the front seven had a lot of questions coming into the season. They showed major improvement from week 1 this past weekend against Wisconsin, holding that daunting rushing attack to very limited production. Now on offense, Jack Cohen has exceeded expectations. They've been extremely efficient, effective, 9 touchdowns, 60% completion percentage, and only 2 picks this season. The one thing I'm worried about is Kyron Williams has failed to really take his game to the next level after exploding onto the scene last year. He's going to have to be a key for this Fighting Irish offense if they plan to make another college football playoff run. Listen, this matchup next week is so crucial for Notre Dame, and it's crucial for their opponent in the Cincinnati Bearcats, who will be coming up later on this list. This is a top 10 matchup. It's probably going to serve as a college football playoff elimination matchup. Both of these teams have to get a win here. It is going to be a must-win game in week 5, a must-see game in week 5. And I am so excited to see what Notre Dame can do against that vaunted Cincinnati defense. This is probably the toughest game Notre Dame has had to this point in the season. So I am extremely excited to see what they can do next weekend. But at number 8, out of the Penn State Nittany Lions, they dropped one spot, and it's really only due to, as y'all can imagine, a team jumping them, and y'all probably know who that is. But Penn State gets a 38-17 win over Villanova. They have key wins against number 12 at the time, Wisconsin, and number 22, Auburn. By the way, I used the rankings of the team at the time they played because that is usually how it has to go. But yeah, 12 Wisconsin, number 22 Auburn. They handled business this weekend against Villanova, but 2 solid rank wins for the season is why I still hold them at number 8. And also, they're a defensive-minded team but they do have some questions on the offensive side of the ball. Clifford has had probably his most effective and efficient season, completing over 70% of his passes, pushing the ball down the field at 10.2 yards per attempt. Jahan Dodson is a stud. I mentioned him on our Penn State Auburn preview. 10 catches that night. He has 27 for the year and 4 receiving touchdowns already. The rushing attack is a huge concern for me, though. They have shown a lack of explosion and a lack of consistency against top FBS opponents, given the Wisconsin-Auburn games. Noah Cain has to continue to develop into the factor that a lot of people thought he would be. And Lovett, the transfer from Baylor, also has to try to establish his role in that running back room. So that is a major concern for the offense for me. But the defense has been solid throughout this season, and they've made plays throughout the first games to either seal the game and or pull away late. They're only allowing 15 points per game and have held opponents to under 3.5 yards per rush and less than 5 yards per play over the first few weeks. Brandon Smith and Ellis Brooks have been absolute stars on this defense, and I think this unit is only scratching the surface of their potential. So I think they are a real Big Ten contender right now. They look to get their second conference win this weekend against Indiana as they visit Happy Valley. And this is another chance that they get a win over Indiana to prove that they belong in this college football playoff and Big Ten championship discussion. So huge game for them. But right now, I don't think you can make an argument that they could be any lower. I believe in the AP poll even jumped them all the way to 4. I just don't think right now that they have earned above these next few teams, but I can see the argument of having them just a little bit higher. But for me, they're going to stick at number 8. Number 7, I have the Arkansas Razorbacks, I guess the Cinderella story of the season, man. I love this team. They definitely were not ranked in my top 10 last week. They have key wins over number 15 Texas and number 7 A&M, who they beat 20-10 this week. They made a huge statement, man. And they could not be stopped. And really, they stopped themselves with KJ Jefferson's entry in the second half, in which Malik Hornsby was not ready for that moment, and that offense kind of sputtered out down the stretch. The offense has been rushing the ball at an elite level. Jefferson has done just enough through the air to take advantage of stacked boxes and one-on-one matchups on the outside. And nobody has had an answer for this Arkansas offense yet. I believe it's Traylon Smith at running back is probably the lead running back, but they have, I mentioned on our preview, they probably have 3 to 4 other guys that are all averaging over 5 yards per carry and all have over 100 yards rushing. This offense alone has rushed for over 260 yards per game, and KJ Jefferson is averaging over 200 yards per game through the air, and that's in limited passing attempts. They are going to run it down your throat, and as soon as you commit to stop the run, they're going to go right over the top. it's hard to play against a team like that. The offensive line has been very, very good this year. They have made a statement all season. They've adopted that Sam Pittman rough and tough mentality, and this entire program's culture has changed under Pittman, and I am shocked at how fast he's got it turned around. The defense has been overlooked, in my opinion, and they actually rank as one of the best units in the country, only allowing 14 points per game. The linebacking unit has been underrated as well. The secondary with Jalen Catalon has been outstanding. Bumper Pool, Henry at linebacker have been outstanding. And this unit, guys, this is with two huge ranked games, are only allowing 270 per game, 270 yards per game with two huge ranked opponents on their schedule. So you can't say they're only doing it because they're not playing anybody. They're playing really, really solid teams, and they're finding a way to get it done in key situations. Sam Pittman has done an outstanding job rebuilding the Razorbacks. Now, they will face their toughest test by far when they visit Athens this weekend to take on the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs in arguably one of the biggest games of the season. But I don't think anyone can make an argument that Arkansas has not earned a spot in the top 10 with their performance this season. Now, at number 6, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. They dropped one spot for me from number 5. I know the AP poll had them dropping 2 spots. They get a 16-13 win over West Virginia. And the main reason I dropped them is they really have not impressed against opponents that they were supposed to beat pretty convincingly. They've been double-digit favorites against Tulane, against Nebraska, and West Virginia, and squeaked out all those wins by only one score. I get it. You get a credit, and that's why I didn't drop them below Arkansas like I thought about. I really was close to putting Arkansas at 6, but Oklahoma has won the games that have been put in front of them. Even though it hasn't been pretty, they have won, and I don't think you can drop them. I had them at 2 to start the season. They've dropped to 6. I just don't think they've justified that steep of a drop to 7. Spencer Rattler is feeling the wrath of Sooner fans. They were chanting Caleb Williams' name all weekend long. And this offense may have put up over 300 yards, but it was in a constant struggle to finish drives and put the Mountaineers away. I do want to say, though, any Oklahoma fan who's saying that Spencer Rattler should be benched is just absolutely out of their mind. This guy's completing almost 80% of his passes, he's thrown for over 1,000 yards, only thrown 3 picks. Guys, calm down. I promise you a true freshman in Caleb Williams. Yes, he's uber talented, but can we let Spencer Rattler play out the season? He had a slow start last year and had this team clicking. He has earned his spot as the starting quarterback. It's ridiculous to want to bench him, and I promise you Lincoln Riley is doing the best thing, and Lincoln Riley would not be afraid to bench him if he wasn't performing. Now, Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks have shown flashes at times, but this weekend especially was atrocious on the ground for the Sooners, and they have to be more consistent because that lack of a run game really stalled out the offense for the Sooners. Now, the defense, shockingly, has outside of the Tulane game has been a saving factor for this team. It came up with crucial stops when they were needed, and they've held opponents to under 17 points per game throughout this season. And the rushing defense has been the bright spot. They've only allowed 74 yards rushing per game and under 2.5 yards per carry. And the defense per game has allowed under 300 yards per game, which is by far one of the best marks probably in Oklahoma recent history, probably in the last 20, 30 years, man. This defense has played lights out at times. And it really and truly, with the offense sputtering at times and not being able to consistently handle drives, they've done a great job of making sure that they hold teams below their averages and keep this Oklahoma team ahead in some of these games. I think you got to give them credit for the Nebraska and the West Virginia game, absolutely, for holding those two teams to under 20 points, because that really, really saved that Oklahoma for 2 straight weeks where that offense sputtered, in which they only had 16 this week and they had 23 last week. Looking ahead now for the Sooners, though, they have to head into Manhattan, Kansas this weekend, and they got to try to exercise some demons against Kansas State, who have won the last 2 matchups against the Sooners when they were top 5 in the country. So this is going to be a huge test for the Sooners. I just think they have too many things right now going wrong for them, and they haven't handled business like some of the teams above them have. So right now I got the Sooners at 6. Now, For 5 will be controversial. I have the Cincinnati Bearcats, who were 6 last week. They had a bye week this week, so we won't spend too much time talking about them right now. But their key win is at Indiana. No losses yet, of course. They had an early bye week. They get to prepare for their biggest matchup of the season when they travel to Notre Dame next weekend. And all the hype surrounding this program will either reach an all-time high next week and or will completely dissipate with the loss to the Fighting Irish. They cannot afford to lose this game. Desmond Ridder, though, is playing lights out. Jerome Ford at running back is playing out of his mind. The defense is elite. The secondary is elite. They're going to have a chance to prove it on the biggest stage when they take the field in South Bend this next weekend. So that is why I have Cincinnati at number 5. And also, they've taken care of the teams that they were supposed to beat, unlike Oklahoma, which is why I jumped them. They have beat every single opponent they faced. They've beat by 14 or more points. Oklahoma has only beaten one by more than that, and that was Western Carolina. So that's why I have Cincinnati jumping Oklahoma for right now. At number 4, I have Iowa sticking at number 4 from last week. I almost dropped them. I really did. I thought their win over Colorado State was extremely unimpressive. 24-14 win over Colorado State. But the 2 ranked wins over Indiana and Iowa State were more convincing than what Cincinnati and or Oklahoma had to this point. So I kept them here, but they cannot repeat the performance they had against Colorado State. They show some serious flaws this weekend, and it was only their first slip up of the season. But like I said, those 2 ranked wins were very impressive. So they need to make sure they don't play down to their opponents again. Now the offense relies on Tyler Goodson to move the ball consistently, but Spencer Petras is eventually going to have to win this team a game, especially when opponents stack the box to stop the run. They're only averaging 290 a game, and they rank 70th in the country in points per game with only 28 points per game. The defense has carried them thus far, and I don't expect that to change anytime because Kirk Ferentz' identity is a tough run game and a great defense, and that's what Iowa is. But how far can that carry them down the stretch? That's what we're going to see. But right now, they rank 3rd in the country with only 11 points per game allowed. They're only allowing 270 total yards for offense allowed against them, and they're forcing 2 turnovers per game thus far in 2021, which is an outstanding mark. They're going to have a chance to make a big statement Friday, though, guys. Maryland is going to be hosting Iowa next weekend, next Friday night, in an undefeated Big Ten matchup. Both of these teams need that win. Talia Tagovailoa is going to be the quarterback for Maryland. This is really going to test how good this Iowa defense is. And also, is Iowa's offense going to be able to keep up with that high-scoring Maryland offense? We're gonna see. Iowa's going to have one of their next big tests next weekend on the road. At number 3, I got the Oregon Ducks, though. A 41-19 win over Arizona. Their key wins, of course, that road trip to Ohio State, and shockingly Fresno State, who was ranked this past week, which is outrageous, especially after they beat UCLA. But they're not going to be flashy, guys. I don't want you guys to confuse this Oregon team with the Chip Kelly teams of the early 2010s. Mario Cristobal has built a smash mouth team with an opportunistic defense with athletes at all these defensive positions, which is something Oregon did not have in those Chip Kelly years. Anthony Brown has completely exceeded my expectations. He's avoided turnovers, he's been efficient, and he's made plays to win the game week after week. 9 total touchdowns with 0 interceptions. You also have that outstanding running game with the 1-2 punch of Travis Dye and CJ Verdell, both averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. And you look at the defense, averaging over 2 turnovers per game and holding opponents to under 20 points per game. And the second that we already know about Thibodeau, we already know about Noah Sewell, we already know about Michael Wright. The secondary has seen big breakouts at safety with Verone McKinley III and Bennett Williams. Those guys are going to be stars on the back end of that defense. And I think the defensive identity and the breakout of Anthony Brown along with that running game has really taken Oregon over the top. And right now, based on what they've done, there is no doubt in my mind that right now they belong in this top 4. So I'm going to keep them at 3, especially after Iowa struggled this week with Colorado State. Now, Oregon looks to continue their march through the Pac-12 next week. have a very interesting and important matchup with Stanford on the road next week. And if they win that game, it's going to give Oregon a real stronghold in the Pac 12 for the rest of the season as they make a big statement with a win at Stanford if they can pull that one out. Now, y'all know who's 1 and 2. We'll start with Georgia at number 2. They had a 62 to nothing win over Vandy. Their key win, of course, over Clemson in week 1. Georgia was a huge favorite over Vandy, but I want to keep it real with y'all. This was pure domination to a whole nother level. And I'm giving Georgia credit for this. I don't care if it's Vandy, because beating a team 62 to nothing with some of these stats I'm about to read off to you guys is absolutely unheard of. They held Vandy to 4 first downs, 77 total yards, 3 turnovers, and held Vandy to less than 2 yards per pass and less than 2 yards per rush the entire game. Well, on the flip side, they put over 530 yards of total offense and almost 30 first downs, while just absolutely demolishing Vandy all day in Nashville. Listen, I don't care who they were playing. That is so impressive. This defense has been stifling all season. They're allowing less than 5 points per game right now, which leads the FBS in scoring defense. And they're allowing less than 200 yards per game this season, which includes that Clemson matchup week 1. What now given might not look as great now that Clemson lost again this weekend, but it's still impressive that they were able to hold every single offense they faced down thus far. The offense has been looking better and better every single week. JT Daniels has been outstanding. Kendall Milton in that running game has been outstanding as well. So for me, I think Georgia is getting it together just at the right time to make a real run through the SEC East. Now, they get a chance to make a big statement this upcoming weekend. Like I said, the Razorbacks are coming to town. It's going to be an amazing matchup between this Arkansas rushing attack versus this Georgia front seven. We're going to see who's legit, and we're going to find out who's a pretender, if there is a pretender in this matchup. And College Game Day will be in Athens for the Georgia-Arkansas matchup, and we, of course, will preview it right here on the Blue Bloods. But let's wrap this up here, man. Alabama's number 1, 63 to 14 win over Southern Miss. They got ranked wins over Miami and Florida. And the Crimson Tide did exactly what they were supposed to do this weekend. They blew out Southern Miss, improved to 4-0. Jamison Williams, man, is an absolute problem for the Crimson Tide. He's making a case for one of the better wide receivers in the entire country, and he is an explosive play waiting to happen on every snap. Now, Bryce Young has played outstanding this season, and this defense, other than 2 quarters at Florida, has played lights out. They have the number 4 scoring offense in the country with 46.5 points per game, and they're averaging over 460 yards per game. Now, the defense is allowing under 285, and they've ranked top 20 in points allowed with only 17 points per game. They are such a well-oiled machine, and we're going to find out how good this team is this week as number 12 Ole Miss comes into Tuscaloosa for a huge top 12 matchup. And the Crimson Tide can solidify themselves as the number 1 team in the country with a big win in that game. So that is something to look out for. I'm excited for all the games I just told y'all about: the Cincinnati Notre Dame, Arkansas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. Those are going to be the games of the week, and I cannot wait to preview those and watch those this upcoming weekend. But guys, y'all see my top 10 right here on my right. Let me know, who I got too high, who I got too low, who I missed. And listen, if you made it this far, comment your top 10 below and give me some explanations on why you have teams where they are. And also just comment your overall thoughts on week 4 college football. Also, go check out our instant reaction episode from yesterday. I've recapped all the week 4 action in college football, man. It was a great weekend, and I hope y'all had a great time watching it. But guys, previews will start coming out Wednesday morning, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video, as I promise you won't want to miss any content here on the Blue Bloods as college football is in full swing now, man. We're about to hit the week 5 mark, man. It has flown by. Huge matchups this week. But guys, appreciate y'all tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, like the video. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.